Welcome back to This Week in Indies. The irony of a genre that roots itself in present day is that its relevancy relies on magical systems, paranormal, and fantastical elements. It is the exact reason why we read and write fiction. It's the escape plan. But does that plan root itself in comfort or familiarity? Is it becoming, too real? Let's discuss with our panel. Then C.L. Buchanan will be along with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of The Three-Body Problem by Cyan Liu. Then, as we look at the week ahead, we'll also look at the week ahead for you on the March of the Writers and give you the prompts for week 2. Followed by a great epilogue that is sure to bring us closer to nothing. So fire up your best spell and conjure a seat in the chat for This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to This Week in Indies. I am your host, Joe Compton, and I'm real excited about this show. We've got a really great show for you today. I got a couple of wonderful urban fantasy authors that we'll talk to and talk about urban fantasy. We have the Indie Connection. We have March of the Writers. We've got preview of what's to come, including a certain someone here in our group debuting a brand new show for us this week on Go Indie Now Network, which I'm real excited about. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But for now, let me not remove myself and bring in the two distinguished gentlemen that I was just speaking of. And let me do it right and get the right thing going here. Nope, that's not it. All right. Boy, I am really just with it right now. Okay, hang on. Where are we at? Come on. Where are you? There it is. Right there. Nope, that's not it. That's it. Nope, that's not it. We're just going to fling them around for a while. All right.
Cool.
This one.
I've always wanted to be a Frisbee.
All right. I'm just going to edit this real quick so that everybody can be in here. Sorry, everybody. We had some contingencies today that we had to deal with, so I just want to. I had to do this last second. All right. Now we're good to go. All right. All right. So let's run around the room as fast as we can, because we've got such a really large room to talk to. Mr. Brian Tan, say hello and tell everybody who you are.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Brian Tan. You should know that by now. 3 weeks straight. Urban fantasy, general fiction author. New projects going great.
Cool. Awesome. Mr. Bob Magoo.
Well, I'm Bob Magoo. I'm best known as the author of the rural urban fantasy series, the Jubal County Saga, which is about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction. So, yeah.
All right. So let me ask right off the bat, what is it about urban fantasy that gets you guys out of bed in the morning? What do you love about this genre in particular?
I mean, for me, it's the fact that as a kid, not a lot of kids in my neighborhood were in the urban fantasy that much. We were, but not to the level that I was. Vampires, werewolves. I mean, those were always my thing. Magic. I was always into that. One of my first horror movies was The Howling, and I even had Dee Wallace kind of tell me off when I told her a story about me and my mom when I was a little kid arguing about not letting me watch The Howling and being young and dumb. I told her, well, the mom from E.T. would let me watch The Howling, not realizing they were the same people. And Dee Wallace goes, no, the mom from E.T. would have kicked your little ass for trying to watch that movie that you had no business watching. So I just like anything that took me out of real life, because real life sucks a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'll second that. I guess part of it is, I guess a little bit wish fulfillment. Like all fantasy is escapist, you know. Like we read fantasy to kind of get away from the horrors of daily life. But with urban fantasy, you've still got that escapism, but also a little bit of like wish fulfillment because it's fantasy that, in theory, could happen to you. You know, I don't live in a world with orcs and goblins, but I do live in South Alabama. So when I write books set there, uh, I'm basically trying to write a more magical version of uh, of the area I live in. So yeah, a little bit of wish fulfillment, a little bit of escapism, and then for me, like the sense of place is very important. It's something I kind of lean on, uh, and uh, I like one thing that really appeals to urban fantasy is getting windows into other areas of the world that I actually live in. So, you know, it's cool to get a in-depth exposition on Moria, but you know, if you read Dresden, you get a real feel for Chicago, just Chicago with wizards. So,
Yeah, I think that's really the true appeal of urban fantasy, right? Is the uh, I mean, we could be honest and say it's the laziness of not having to world build, right?
oh, that is a
but
big plus.
but there is still things you have to build. You have to build magic systems. You have to build characters and arcs and give their credence to whatever wherever they come from, right? And so, and then of course you have to. Uh, there is a responsibility that I think comes with urban fantasy that doesn't come with many other genres. Maybe the only other genre I can think of where this would be true is all fiction, all history, is that you have to be authentic to the place that you're describing, right?
Yeah.
That becomes the major thing about urban fantasy. I think that differentiates it from everything else. Would you guys agree, or is there something else you think differentiates it?
Well,
Uh,
I definitely agree with that. And you can see it to a lesser degree. We've seen some authors who've really stepped in it and how they kind of appropriate real world elements to drop into their fantasy world, and they do it insensitively.
Mhm.
And so it can
mhm.
happen in more conventional fantasy, but in urban fantasy, it is absolutely uh, it's a potential landfill or you know minefield out there. Um, and so that's why I write stories in Alabama from the perspective of a white dude. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a person of color in the deep South. Like I have friends that can tell me about it, but I don't have that lived experience. So it would be, I don't write those as viewpoint characters because I just don't think I could do it with the sensitivity necessary. So that's also why I don't write books in New York. You know, I don't live in New York. I've never lived in New York. Um, I can, you know, go to Google Maps and street view it, I guess, but that's not quite the same. So I couldn't, I couldn't do it justice. So
Mhm.
that's why I write the books where they are.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo that. I think that, with urban fantasy, you if you're going to try to use the real world, you definitely have to build that lore of how this setting works. Like
Mm.
in the Enforcer, it's sort of like modern day. I use actual names of cities, locations in Pittsburgh because I most of my stories take place in Pittsburgh because that's where I live. That's my home. This latest one, um, I'm giving elements to Pittsburgh, but I've given it a different name. I want to be a little bit different. But yeah, and all of my characters are a lot of my lead characters are black men because, well, I mean, this might be a shock, but I'm a black man. So yeah, exactly. And even though I do have female secondary protagonists and female leads, I make sure that a lot of my beta readers are female to make
Mhm.
sure that I'm getting it right.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of it is just because world building from doing it in urban fantasy, I definitely want to echo that you can kind of be lazy ish and make it like the real world, where if you're writing epic fantasy, you've got to build countries, you've got to build dialects, you've got to build cultures of all everything else. And it's just, I mean, hell, doing 2.5 weeks of mind mapping for a story felt like epic work to me. I can't imagine having to do like months and years of mind mapping just to start writing a book.
Yeah, people write a book about the world building. They write literally a book, for world building, but it never gets seen by anybody but them, which is wow.
unless you're Tolkien, and then that stuff gets released.
Whatever.
But yeah, I really find it. I really find it fun though to look at the world as we see it through this mirror lens, though. Like, because yeah, you can have real places, real names, real people, but there's always those little differences. It's kind of like you're doing your own little version of Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I definitely do that. I use a ton of actual real places in my series, but the core setting is a fictionalized version of the county I grew up in. So, Montgomery gets mentioned, Troy gets mentioned, Greenville gets mentioned, these places that are real. But then the core county where this is set, Jubal County, is really just Crenshaw County, Alabama, with a new coat of paint and a Dairy Queen, because I wanted there to be a Dairy Queen. So it, again, wish fulfillment. I wish my hometown had a Dairy Queen when I was growing up, and it didn't. So by God, I wrote one in there. So, but it helps me because it's very much Crenshaw County in my head. So I can map out distances. Like, I know how long it would take to kind of get from here to there, but it gives me the freedom to, well, I want there to be a little community here, or I want there to be a funeral home here, or a barbecue joint there. And so I can drop in what I need for the story without being so locked in to the real world.
I mean, that being said, though, there is some building to do. You have to build the magic and the elements that come along that aren't real. And so, how do you all approach that? Is that a separate build for you, or is that within the storyline that you're writing? How do you guys? And then you kind of map what you wrote, and then kind of go along with it. How do you guys figure out those elements for your stuff?
It depends. I mean, let's be honest. And now, my family comes from Talladega, so I haven't been to Alabama in over 30 years, but it never changes. Alabama is just a small town on a map. Okay, nothing changes in a small town. So the way that I would approach, magic and things that are different is how you look at how a lot of the times, not all, obviously, but how a lot of folks in the South are different bad. And there's a lot of people all over the world, different bad. So, magic users are just like any other minority. In the Bryce Creed books, Joe, you know this for yourself. The vampires and werewolves keep their existence separate. Because why? Different bad. We as human beings, no matter whether we're urban creatures or rural creatures. What did Tommy Lee Jones say in Men in Black? A human being can be smart. People are panicky creatures that destroy anything different. So that's kind of how I try to handle it.
This series has been a complete departure for me from my usual way of doing things. Being a longtime DM, and game designer, like I always like to kind of map things out a pretty good bit before I dive into it.
Mm.
And I'm very much a pantser when it comes to the storylines, but I do like to do some world building. Um, with this series, though, I essentially did none. and But it's so far it's worked out for me. I'm sure I'll eventually write myself into a corner and I'll be real screwed. But so far, a lot of the like magic system I have kind of discovered along the way and how it works. I did have a couple of core elements going into it
Mm.
that I knew, like spell jars were going to be a form of magic, uh, kind of that old Southern hoodoo style spell jar. And then I knew that uh, blood, like people's ethnicity, influences the magical world. Like basically, people bring their myths and legends with them.
Mm.
So this area had a lot of Scotch Irish immigrants, so a lot of the magical creatures tend to be more Celtic in origin, but there's more than just that, so you get a little bit of everything. And that's all I really knew when I went into writing this. Um, and I don't know, so far it's worked out. It's allowed me the freedom to kind of make connections and in cool ways without kind of handcuffing me. So
Nice.
yeah, it's worked so far.
All right. Can I be a little controversial here? I've One of the things I find that almost has to be a requirement of the protagonist, especially, but maybe even antagonists in these series, or um, just main characters or characters that you're developing strongly, right? One of the things that I find urban fantasy has leaked into, and it just seems to be, I don't know if it's just happenstance, if it's the environment, and maybe you guys can shed some light on why this is. But I'm finding that the characters in urban fantasy are a lot more cynical and snarky, and a lot more like you take your Harry Dresden's, your Buffy Summers, your a Suki South, whatever her last name is. You know, you, you take your Bryce Creeds, you take your freaking everything. I mean, it just seems like there's a snark to the characters. I mean, one of my favorite series by J.D. Blackrose is her Summoner's Mark series, and Bex is a complete and utter, psychopath when it comes to like cynical natures and things of that nature. Is it just because we're in a world and fuck this world kind of thing? I mean, I'm trying to figure out why these characters have this edge to them.
No,
I
Bob.
think I think it's again going back to wish fulfillment. I think it's two things. One, I think it goes back to wish fulfillment. We all, a lot of these guys are saying the stuff that we wish we could get away with with saying.
Yeah.
When you look like me, you don't get to say a lot of cool, snarky things because you're like, "Oh God, that weird dude, he's saying that. I don't know about that." Um,
And you can
so
blame
there's
it on the
wish.
meth, right? You can blame.
Yeah,
Blame it on the
blame it on
meth.
the
Oh
meth. There
God.
we go. There we go. Um, so I think that's part of it. So it just everyone here. The beauty of writing is, you can take as long on it as you want.
Yeah.
So every time you've had an argument where 20 minutes later you think of that perfect, retort, well, you've got that 20 minutes at all times. So, you can come up and be the full snarky, clever self that you want to be. Uh, and it hits the page seamlessly, unlike the real world. But then the other part of that is, I think it's just, and I will say I have seen some pushback against this. I've been seeing on like some book request threads that like folks are like, I want urban fantasy, but I'm just tired of snarky characters.
Yeah.
Recommend me books with no snark, But I think it was because a lot of the early, really big names had snarky characters, so that kind of became a somewhat expected trope. And So I think those two things coming together leads to a lot of snarky characters. But I
The
think
problem with
as time goes by,
requesting nonsense. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
as time goes by, I think you'll start seeing fewer of those snarky characters, especially as like things like cozy
No.
fantasy get increasingly popular. I suspect we will start seeing some more like kind of cozy urban fantasy stuff cropping up with probably less snarky characters.
I was gonna make a joke that we have seen it. It's called romantasy, but
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. And I definitely want to piggyback off of that, because when you look at, like, especially for those of us that are Gen X, action heroes always had that, Arnold Schwarzenegger always had like the coolest, one-liners, Ash Williams, one-liners, everyone loves the one-liner. I mean, even you want to take it back in cinema, look at Humphrey Bogart. He always had something cool to say. Much of a POS as he was, John Wayne had cool things that he said. Shaft always had something cool to say. Dolomite had something cool to say. That's just the way it's been, and then you get a Buffy Summers that had to make everything a joke. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, when they started to become mainstream, they were always wisecracking became the thing, because that's kind of, it's the wish fulfillment. We wish that we could say something like that. How many times have any of us, just to piggyback off what Bob said, you sit there and you get into a roast contest with somebody, then you walk away like, damn it. I mean, even in my project right now, the one character is just constantly roasting the lead character, the one lead character, and he just kind of takes it, because it's like, I have nothing. I got nothing. And then like later on, it's like, damn it. You know what I mean? So
that's the whole plot of 8 Mile.
Pretty much. I mean, that's exactly it. He got roasted the whole movie until he just took all of that from like a month of being picked on to finally just obliterate them, and then roasted himself so they couldn't roast him. So I think that the reason why people get tired of it, I think part of it is that everyone does it. Yeah. We see it everywhere. We see it in all of our TV shows, all of our films, all of our books. Plus, I think people are getting tired of it, because it's like, damn it, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. So it's also a little bit of a little, I don't want to go so far to say hating, but kind of hating, because everyone wants to do it, and then they get mad that they don't. Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, I now really, really want an urban fantasy remake of 8 Mile, where it's like rap battles or how you cast spells. Like, I want to see that so bad now.
I could see B Rabbit as a bard.
That's awesome.
And just diss tracking everybody when he goes to cast what's it called? What's that bard spell? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, Vicious Mockery.
Yeah, Vicious Mockery. And it's it's like an LL Cool J diss track. Like if I ever get into another D&D game, I'm just gonna have a whole playlist of diss tracks. And every time I like go to cast Vicious Mockery, like I think my latest one is gonna be They Ain't Like Us by Kendrick Lamar.
Man, you stole it from me. I was just gonna say the series should be called Not Like Us.
There you go. They Ain't Like Us, aka Jack the Ripper. Because I mean and the whole playlist would be like LL, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many careers did LL Cool J ruin with his diss tracks?
You're a ghost. You look like you look terrible for a ghost. Also, the other interesting thing about urban fantasy I find fascinating is that it's rooted in some kind of mythology, right? There's a touch of, you touched on it, Bob, the Celtic aspect of what you do because of the territory you're in and things of that nature. But I mean, there's also so many Gothic, Southern urban fantasies where they touch on, the incredible amount of Southern lore that there is. I know that in the Hunted series, in the Breast Creek stuff, there's a lot of lore from the East Coast and Northeast that you bring in as well, Brian. The vampire aspect of things, and where a lot of that was very northeastern. Um, so it's very interesting that that's part of it as well. That here we are being lazy and rooted in no world building. We're able to be snarky, which in itself is a pretty lazy thing to be, right? It's easy to just be snarky, right, all the time, right? Um,
Mhm.
it takes work to be nice sometimes, right? So, but but and then you have this enrichment of these incredible deep histories and mythologies, and I mean, how much do you take that credence? I mean, for vampire lore, for Celtic lore, are you all following, what you know about it, doing deep dives into research about it? Is this where the laziness doesn't help you at all? Basically.
I think in some instances, I took a lot of what I knew
Hmm.
and made it my own.
Hmm.
Like I was a huge Vampire the Masquerade gamer.
Mm.
Oh
So
yeah.
I made sure to use aspects of that because I'm sorry, the newer system just doesn't appeal to me. So I love the third ed and the second ed. So some of that's there, but also a lot of the classic stuff that inspired that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And a lot of aspects of the magic, the shapeshifters, the vampires. A lot of that was things that I've seen, things that I've always thought about. So, and I that was tough for me because when I'm writing those Bryce Creed books, I was so of this mindset. I gotta be original. I gotta be super duper
Yeah.
original. I don't want people thinking that I'm biting off of this stuff. And then it's like, well, how many people outside of a niche audience is gonna know about Vampire the Masquerade?
Mm.
Furthermore, how are they going to say that I'm stealing anything from them when they've taken from other aspects and put their own stuff around it?
Yeah.
So, and even in Age of the Gods, what I'm working on now, I'm who hasn't used aspects of Judeo-Christian mythology and you know, Greek, Roman, Norse, African, god like stuff. I'm just smashing it all together. A, because it makes a hell of a story, and B, it's probably going to piss off enough people that no bad publicity is still good publicity. But I also have to realize that I am so relatively obscure compared to a lot of my peers that no one's going to notice anyway. So I might as well just have fucking fun with it.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, I feel like the joke I always heard was if you can't play an instrument, play punk. Um, and I
If you
feel
can't
like urban
sing, be a
fantasy,
front man in a punk band.
right? I feel like urban fantasy, like we're the most punk genre because uh, we don't we don't have to learn our instrument to the degree a lot of like craft aside. Like I'm just saying, like from the world building, everything we've figured out all the hacks, that we
Hmm.
can go. It's the potentially the laziest genre you could write, because yeah, I do the same thing. My background is in anthropology. That's my undergrad. So, and my focus was religion. So I just kind of had a lot of knowledge about world religions in general, and I've just kind of cherry picked uh, elements that uh, fit the story I'm trying to tell. Uh,
Hmm.
so I do lean more heavily on more like Celtic mythology, but I use a little. One of the major entities is a satyr. Another major entity is called the Hog of the Road, and he claims to be one of the swine that demon cast or that Jesus cast the demons into. So it's still just kind of roaming the world. So yeah, I'll grab whatever bit of lore fits fits my story, fits my setting. But then occasionally I just come up with I'll be driving down the road. Uh, Weird aside, um, I used to walk this dirt road for exercise, um, and I kept there was this small field that had a purple car just parked in the middle of this. And I would never remember that purple car until I'd be walking. Oh, it's that purple car again. It's like, why do I never remember that car? Because I kept thinking, like, oh, I need to ask someone whose car that is. Like, what's going on with this bright purple car in the middle of a field in backwoods Alabama? And I was like, do I need to alert? Like, is there a body in the trunk? Like, what's going on there? And so that became a story. So, it's not all witchcraft. Sometimes it's just weird purple cars out in fields. But yeah, a lot
I
of
do.
times I do just, just take some world religion, grab a little snippet of lore that's relevant, and then go on about my day.
I think the other thing that's interesting about urban fantasy, and maybe why there's a comfort zone for those who write in it, is that you're looking at things you know, right? And you're also looking for things that represent you and what you like or what you know. And they're not stuff out there like that. And so that's kind of number one, like you were saying, Brian, writing a vampire story, you're thinking the only thing you're thinking about is don't let it be Bram Stoker's Dracula. Don't let it be Anne Rice, right? I want to be different. I want to be totally different, right? But the urban fantasy is totally different because you're writing from the perspective that you know, right?
Right.
Is there comfort in that? Do you find that is kind of the case that, like, hey, look, I'm putting out stories about not about me, but things I know about, and here you go, and places I know, and nobody else has ever done that, and that's kind of cool that I get to do that, right?
And that's actually how I was able to actually finish the two Bryce Creek books right now, because I was definitely terrified about, oh crap, am I going to get this comparison? Is this that the other blah blah blah? Then it's like, well, wait a second. Like Bram Stoker's Dracula, that takes place in England. Ain't no black folks there. Anne Rice, contrary to what AMC has done, I don't believe Louis was a brother. Louis owned a plantation. He wasn't no brother. You know what I mean? And from what I know of the books, with the exception of Akasha, who was more Egyptian than anything else, you know what I mean? Like that's the only real aspect of, the diaspora. So I was like, look, I'm telling the tale from Bryce Creed's perspective in the the later 20th century during the among the most evil times in American history, from this black man's perspective, who comes from a regal royal bloodline that has been made into a slave and then became a vampire. Ain't nobody else telling that story like I can. No. Even of the black writers, you're not telling that story the way I tell the story. Nope. So that's really, and it's, it's from my perspective, from my character's perspective. So yeah, you can say, wow, that setting is similar. Yeah, the rules of vampirism and all that are similar, but this is my world. So it's different. And that's really what I had to tell myself. And I think that, the punk rock aspect of being an urban fantasy writer, if it's in your world, it don't have to fit how it fit elsewhere. Make it your own. I mean, hell, punk rock. One of my favorite punk songs is Joey Ramone's cover of "What a Wonderful World." Louis Armstrong was not that great of a traditional singer, but that song was his own. And Joey Ramone, who was not a great traditional singer, made that his own. And it's still good.
Yeah. As the years have gone by, I've gradually started to accumulate friends who also write Southern urban fantasy. So, but even though we all write urban fantasy set in the deep South, in backwoods areas, they're all telling very different types of stories. Um, I set out to really kind of showcase a lot of the grit and the influence that drugs have had, how poverty. I really focus on the the more poverty side of life in the South. But if you look at someone like Alexander Nader, he is telling stories that are more noir. Like he's setting out to take those old, you know, let's take the Maltese Falcon, but make it Southern demon hunting. So he's trying to be, that Raymond Chandler esque type story that is kind of more his comfort zone, something that he really loves and is trying to adapt to the modern era. But then if you look at someone like John Hartness with Bubba the Monster Hunter, which is really more technically horror, but I would argue that uh, there really is no line between horror and urban fantasy. It's just a blurry, hazy maze.
Yeah.
But he's telling it very different stories as well. They're much more comedic. They tend to be more action packed. So it's all, we're all playing in the same playground, but we're all telling very, very different stories that are heavily influenced by our interests, and our lived experience.
Yeah, YS Book said it's a unique spin on things popularly known. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's really all any of this is. I mean, I introduced my wife and I we've watched the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, but earlier this past week she finally got to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer the movie because it popped up on Prime, and she was like, "It's different, but it's almost the same." I said, "Yeah, this is the studio taking a great idea and ruining it, and then it going to TV." And I think the main reason why we ended up watching it was because, I believe it was the same day that it was announced that Michelle Trachtenberg had tragically passed, which is kind of hard to wrap my head around. But yeah, you're putting your own spin on certain things. The ideas are the similar. I mean, there have been tales of vampire hunters for forever. Stoker's Dracula, Van Helsing. Van Helsing and Dracula go together. They're hand in hand with each other. Simon Belmont. Whatever. It's just different from a different perspective, different idea. I mean, and that's what alternate realities are anyway.
Yeah.
Just things just a little bit different, but it's the same premise.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna take a little break here. We're gonna do the indie connection real quick, and then we'll be back, and I'll talk to these gentlemen about their characters specifically. I want to get their perspective a little bit on their characters a little bit, and we'll, even though there's just two people here today, we'll still play our little epilogue game, but which it'll still be fun because I've got two of my favorite characters here as well. So all right, well here's the indie connection, y'all, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, C.O. Kanan here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of The Three-Body Problem by Liu Cixin. The first book I have for you is called Isolating Contact by Ash Remington. The truth has never set anyone free. It's 2032 and mankind is quite proud of themselves. Nuclear weapons have been destroyed and humans have earned their first contact moment. There's peace with the mysterious alien visitors right up until the portal connecting their two worlds becomes operational, and only hours later, all hell breaks loose. Earth's fate lies in the hands of a sociopath propagandist, her guerrilla journalist nemesis, a hero pilot with a dark secret, a wannabe astronaut out for vengeance, and a mercenary on the lam. Sometimes as enemies and other times as allies, this collection of loners will shape the future of their species, if there's to be one at all. The ugly truth behind why things went so wrong is buried out there somewhere, and it may cost them everything if they go digging for it. The second book I have for you is called Silent Invasion by Chris Shakowitz, an alien plot on an unimaginable scale. Amber Van Houten is working at her dream job at News Corp in New York City. That is, it's a dream until she discovers large corporations are corrupting governments around the world, sponsoring questionable projects and building huge factories in lawless places for an unknown purpose. Determined to learn who is behind these crimes, Amber follows a trail of clues to a remote village in North Africa. Jeff Smith is a senior CIA agent. When his team discovers a material that cannot be made on Earth, and his director does not want to believe him, Jeff is reassigned to follow Amber to Africa, not suspecting it will lead him to the answers about the mysterious material. Amber and Jeff have met before. He once tried to stop her from getting a story, so when he comes to her rescue in a dire situation, she is less than grateful. Soon, however, they find themselves forming a fragile alliance. When they discover an unimaginable nightmare, they quickly realize that they can trust no one except each other. Soon, Jeff and Amber are being chased around the world by members of the Hidden Hand, a secret society with influence at the highest levels across many governments. What Amber and Jeff have discovered will change the world forever if they don't put a stop to it. But who will believe them, and will they even live to tell the tale? The third book I have for you is called First Contact by David Brown. What happens when a galactic federation of peaceful planets offers humanity a chance to join them, and with it a gigantic leap into a bright future, filled with all the marvels a billion-year advance of technology and intelligence can offer? All we have to do is renounce violence, embrace peace, and evolve into a higher consciousness. But if we don't, we may soon find ourselves quarantined, or worse, eradicated like a virus to prevent our violent ways from spreading across the galaxy. The clock is ticking. Now it's on the shoulders of a few unlikely heroes to save the day before it's too late. It won't be easy because they quickly discover that our world isn't quite ready to give peace a chance, even when it means a choice between paradise on Earth or the cataclysmic consequences. And the last book I have for you is called The Emissary by Michael J. Edwards. It wasn't the aliens she had to worry about, it was the humans. A troubled young woman is recruited by a race of ancient alien explorers to be their emissary to save the human race from extinction. The problem is that not everyone believes the world is doomed, and not everyone trusts the aliens' motives. Holly Burton will have to overcome opposition from world leaders, attacks by religious zealots, assassination attempts, intractable bureaucracies, and her own fears and doubts if she is to save the human race, not just from the coming apocalypse, but from itself. She will have to become a very different person to lead a remnant of humanity into space and become the architect of a new civilization. The question is, can she use the extraordinary knowledge and abilities given to her without losing her own humanity in the process? Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
As always, thank you to CL Cannon for that wonderful indie connection. I was just thinking in that last book, well, I was thinking two things about the indie connection. First off, if you want to get on the indie connection, she does have a sign-up sheet for it, but I'm going to tell you, if your cover sucks, you're never going to get on it, because the the covers on this show are just phenomenal. I mean, she finds diamonds in the rough. I mean, I'm like going, who is this cover artist for that third one with the kids and the moons? And I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. And the second thing I was going to say is Michael J. Edwards, his blurb about, the world being doomed, he must have written that during the Obama years, because the world is fucked. So
yeah. Well, see, I got to give a shout out to William Joseph Ramos, who did my covers. Nice. He's amazing. I still owe him for the three that he's done, and if I hadn't fallen on hard times, I'd have repaid that so much sooner. But shout out to him, because he's taken my covers, and he's taken the ideas of my books, and I've trusted his creative vision, and he never ever disappoints. Nice. But yeah, in this world is definitely it's preparing for an X-Hamster showcase, because it's getting plowed like a field.
I'll give a shout out to Bob McGowan, who makes his own covers. So, which are fantastic.
I couldn't make my own covers if I tried.
I have a T-shirt with this very cover of design on it, which I really love. It's one of my favorite T-shirts of all time. So
you should have that. Yeah. That was my COVID project, was learning enough graphic design that I wouldn't have to always hire someone. Now, my covers tend to be more minimalist. I could not do a cover like what's on The Hunted. That's way beyond my skill level, but luckily I like minimalist design, so
Yeah.
that's within my
See,
skill
I
range.
am so hoping that I have a little bit of financial windfall that I can pay Will back so that he'll do the cover for Age of the Gods, because
Will
damn,
does some really good stuff. Yeah,
Will is amazing. Will's an
Yeah.
amazing person too, just inside and in, like, creatively and personally. He's such a great guy. He's a really good guy.
I have no idea who did the cover of the movie that I'm repping here. And nobody's ever even asked me why I have this movie cover here.
Yeah, why do you have a movie cover?
Because I actually worked on this script. This is a script that I helped doctor, helped fix a couple key problems with, and it was the only thing that I had in my arsenal that was urban fantasy, other than a certain other movie that will remain nameless. I do not want to be associated with, that I actually worked on. But yeah, I helped correct a couple key elements in the script of this film, with the production.
You cracked some keys elements.
Yes.
Oh,
nice.
That was good. You know what?
Coming strong. All right.
You are not. Hey, look, you are not just smoking meth out at a bonfire, my friend. That was a burn.
Yes, that's why that's there, because my books are not urban fantasy.
Well,
Obviously.
why haven't I watched this movie yet, Joe?
I don't know. You don't want to. It's not good, Brian. It's kind of why I don't talk about the movies I get involved in, because they're not good. They're just not good.
Look, if I had a writer's credit on a movie, I don't care if they were written. I
didn't get credit for the writing.
Oh, well, then never mind.
Yeah,
I was about to say
I'm not credited at all. I simply helped fix a couple scenes in it. The production company I worked for actually was the minor affiliate to this film, so that's why I got the job. I basically got handed here's 10 pages, fix them, kind of thing. So that's kind of what happened.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, look, if I worked, even if it was something from UA Bowl, I'd be like, yep, I was in on that. Me. But then they took my ideas.
The other one I was involved in during my time period, I will say this. I'll give you one hint, and then you guys can go look on IMDb and figure it out. But David Hasselhoff was involved. And that's
my God. The
Hoff. All right. Enough of that. All right.
Was he still Peter Krill's father figure?
Well, if it were a U-Ball film.
Bro, no one knows me for anything else. I'd at least like to be known that I did a U-Ball film.
Hello, Heather, and hello, Vanessa, for joining us. Nice to see you both.
Hey.
After fixing it, if there's any glory, that they take the credit and pose like Randy Orton.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, to kind of round out this conversation, guys, I wanted to ask both of you, who've created two of my favorite characters of all time. Bryce Creed is right up there. Howard Marsh is, of course, one of my favorite characters. I'm curious for you guys, though. Here we are. We've talked about how lazy we are. We've talked about how much we just stay where we shit where we eat. How much magic systems we put into thought, and how much research we don't do. But I'm curious, is there something that surprised you getting into this and getting into these characters that you didn't expect when you came into it? Did these guys give you something that you didn't have before, that you were kind of going, oh, you know what? I'm really glad I got to explore these characters.
Yeah. I actually got to sleep at night. Bryce Creed was a reoccurring nightmare that just constantly haunted me. And I think that when I finally started writing wrote The Enforcer, Bryce Creed finally stopped plaguing me. He stopped being, he literally stopped hurting me. So it was nice to finally get a little bit of aspect of peace because, I'm talking about this today with the news that I got. Um, a lot of my, I've had a lot in my life go on, a lot of it. And I'll tell you the truth, writing the first Bryce Creed novel really just helped me to learn how to find myself and maybe know what an aspect of peace in this life is like.
Wow. That's amazing.
Cool.
Top that, Bob.
I can't because I'll be weirdly. I want to say that nothing has really because like I set out. I knew I wanted to tell stories set in the South,
Yeah.
and that I was writing those before I ever was writing Howard Marsh. I wrote a ton of like Southern Gothic little short stories and vignettes and just stuff like that. So I knew I wanted to tell stories in that space. But when I got the idea for Howard, he was basically like fully formed, more or less. And so nothing about him has necessarily surprised me as I'm writing him because uh, he's kind of an amalgam of just a lot of people that have been in my life, and so it's like it's basically I know Howard, so he doesn't really surprise me. Um, Things about the world do end up surprising me as I like discover them along the way, but him, I've always known exactly what I wanted to do with him. So there hasn't really been much in the way of surprises from him as a character, at least not that I can think of.
Has he given you anything
in this
though?
moment.
Do you feel like fulfilled that you've written this character, or is there something about it?
I don't feel fulfilled yet because I haven't finished it.
Right.
If I were to die tomorrow and this series doesn't get finished, I've written a story about a drug addict, but the intention is for me to write a story about a drug addict who kicks his addiction and has a happy ending, because the story I want to tell is the happy ending. Because it's I tell people that all the time though because I want them to know that it's called The Redemption of Howard Marsh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was just gonna say it's in the fucking title. So
it's in the title, but it's. I know people who are not going to have a happy ending due to drugs.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to. My goal is to write a story that has a happy ending for those people.
JD has a question for you, Bob.
Yeah.
At a massage parlor, happy ending.
Yeah, there we go.
Just not Deshaun Watson style.
So yeah, I'm not fulfilled, but given enough time, I will be fulfilled. I need a few more hours in the day so I can crank out about 6 to 12 more books.
JD also mentioned that it's definitely amazing, Brian. I call it emotional alchemy, turning life's fastballs into the head into gold.
Pretty much. I'll tell you what. I think the reason why I'm all about Bryce Creed in a lot of ways is for the same reason that all young men, but especially young white males in the 90s, flocked to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because it's like, man, I wish I could get away with, hitting my boss in the dick and giving him beers and drinking beers and spraying beers on people I hate. Where with Bryce Creed, it's like, you know what? I wish I could just dictate what I do, what I don't do, give the middle finger to authority, get in my big old pickup truck and do whatever the hell I want to do. And then when I get mad, beat the shit out of somebody and not face any consequences. But this is the real world. Not allowed to do that.
Okay, I'm going to give you both something that your characters have given me in reading both of them. I've read both of them. I'm fans of both of them. And for me, what Bryce Creed has really given me, what I really love about Bryce Creed is the decisions he makes are on the fly, but you can always tell he had been thinking about it. Like he was 3 steps ahead of everybody else in what he was thinking about. There's a particular scene in which he has a love interest, and the love interest tries to kind of fawn him away, and he knew that was coming, kind of idea, right? And he deflects and he figures out a way to get around that, right? And it's just really impressive to me, and it I don't do this very often. I should do it more in thinking about who I am as a person, and that is think before I speak, but or at least at least let the thoughts that are in my head come out properly. I have a problem with that as well, because I tend to spew a lot of word vomit that before I get to the actual point, which I'm doing now as well. I'm demonstrating very, very thoroughly. But yeah, I really love that about Bryce Creed. I mean, his aggressiveness and his tendency to be somewhat Arnold Schwarzenegger meets Axel Foley kind of is cool to me too. But for that's something I've taken away from Bryce Creed. For Howard Marsh, the thing I take away from Howard Marsh is,
it's his decision making, right? It's the same thing. He's always
no, no, not at all. There's a great scene, one of my favorite scenes in one of my favorite movies that's called Heat, and they're going to see their snitch, and the snitch proclaims, he goes, "It's called a substance abuse problem, brother. Have some empathy," right? And I've developed kind of an empathy for Howard, because everything he does, he causes for the most part. He gets beat up for the right reasons, right? But or just being stubborn, he gets beat up, or he just takes something on. But he takes it on, and when it abuses him, it doesn't faze him, and I really admire that about Howard Marsh. I don't know why. It's really interesting to me, and I look at that and go, you know what? When I see somebody who might be causing a ruckus, right, just because they're on a drug-addicted mind bender, and they run into a store and they start yelling weird shit, or they start being confrontational, it makes me pause a little bit and go, you know what? Yeah, this could be Howard Marsh, and somebody's just going to beat the shit out of him. But I have a little sympathy for that person. I understand their mindset, because they're on drugs, or they're not thinking straight, right? And so Howard Marsh, surprisingly, has given me a little bit of sympathy for those folks and characters like that. Whereas, maybe before I would have turned my back, or just tried to ignore it, or try to, or if they got in my face, probably tried, get a little confrontational. But I mean, I don't do that anymore. That was a really old version of Joe Compton. But you know what I mean. So that's kind of where I've laid with both of your characters. So just a little something.
I'm glad.
Yeah, that's kind of why I chose to write a drug addict character. Is it's kind of easy to demonize people that you only ever see them at their worst.
Yeah.
So you never think about the times when they're not at their worst. So it's, you see Howard Marsh do some really dumb, fucked up shit, but you also see him when he's, what led to him doing that,
Right.
There could be other factors at play. So
and he oftentimes is the smartest guy in the room, which is a scary thought too. But
well, you set the bar low enough, Alabama. It's not hard to do. So,
and I think with Bryce, I've always wanted to know that I was always a couple of steps ahead, because I've usually been the type where either my emotions would get in the way, or I just be slow on the pickup. I guess as smart as I am, I'm not always super sharp, to call it from CTE, or just, fuck, why didn't I say that then? Where Bryce, he's got to be steps ahead.
Yeah.
Because he's a hunter.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was a slave, he had to be steps ahead. and the fact that he was, raised as royalty and to be a warrior king, he had to be steps ahead. That's for as much as I like the game of chess, I'm not good with mental chess a lot of the sometimes I am. Maybe I don't give myself enough credit. But Bryce
don't. But yeah.
Maybe I don't, and I probably don't. But Bryce is who I've always sort of envisioned myself as, who I wish I was outwardly, and that I could see it. Where Bryce, he knows who he is.
I don't think Bob has that issue. All right. So speaking of writing, this month is March, and that means it's March of the Writers' Time. Mr. J.D. Estrada has created this incredible thing that you all can do. And let me, for those of you here who have never heard of this or are interested in doing this, two caveats that I think JD would echo here very, very vehemently, and that is, this is just a guideline to doing these things. If you want to structure it daily, you can do so, but you can always go back and do them again. It doesn't have to be on the 9th day. You can do number 9 on day 12. I mean, I don't know if you really want to wait till April to do these or catch up, but these are daily prompts that you can accomplish by posting on social media. It's designed to give you some views on social media and give you an opportunity to enhance your author profile without, here's my book, buy my book. These are things that JD's come up with that will help you do other things that people might enjoy hearing about. So this week's prompts are healthy habits. Every year I include this topic because there are so many great tips to stay healthy in the body and mind, and that we need this space to share the wealth. Have you done something that was a game changer for your health, whether it's in writing or life? Have you gotten a writing schedule? Have you deleted apps? Have you stopped or started doing things for your well-being that you could help others? Then share the wealth. So do you want to talk about that on social media apps that you're on, which is kind of ironic? Then that's a great prompt, okay? There's also social distancing. In the last year, a lot of people have opted out of social media, or some platforms have been or will be banned. This might be worrying to some, but for others, it's welcome pruning of things that might not be worth the price of admission or yielding proper return of investments. What do you think of this trend, and have you stopped participating in some of the platforms and events? All right, number 11 is making it personal. Do you include unique things in your stories or writing in general to reward your readers, especially those who have read more than one of your books, poems, or stories? And number 12 is, where are you still at? In 2024 was the year of deleting apps and saying no to certain events, websites, etc. Which apps and events are you keeping, and why? And number 13, you've got this. Sometimes we need a kick in the ass, and sometimes we need a shoulder to cry on. What are some of the words of encouragement you've received, and you'd like to pay forward? Number 14 is, where in the world, how many countries have you read in? Have people that follow you? This is a small exercise to show your reach, and that sometimes you have followers where you least expect them. Also, readers, this is your chance to let us know where you've been reading from. Also, writers, where else would you like to be read? So those are prompts for this week. Every week in March, we will be reading the prompts that are going on for the week. But again, you can always go to JD Estrada's Writing Out Loud blog, pick up these prompts and do them from whatever order you wish, however many you want to try, how many you don't want to try. There's no right or wrong here. It's just giving you an opportunity to do some things and giving you some push to help you get out there on social media or just out there in general, so people get to know you a little bit better, which is I think very important for an author profile. So they're out there. The link is in the description, so you guys can click on the link and always see all the prompts that are going on throughout the entire month. This is just this week's, and we'll continue that forward. All right. Also, this week, today we have started a new season. This is our spring season. If you didn't catch it, our our graphic changed at the very beginning. Our little anime was a different anime. So with that being said, comes new things and old things, and myself and Brian Tan are doing a couple shows that will continue on through the spring season. And Mr. Bob Magoo is joining the fray with his brand new show, Page Numbers. And I don't know, Bob, do you want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about the show?
So I'm super huge on transparency. When I was coming up, early days of being an author, I had no idea if my sales numbers were good, my sales numbers were bad. And no one talked about it. So, that whole be the change you want to see. For years now, I've been very transparent as an author. Every month you can go see, how much money I made doing X, Y, or Z. I do event recaps, things of that nature. So this is kind of the next step in that. And instead of it just being me all the time, I am now interviewing other creatives to get the numbers behind their craft. And it's starting out will be largely author focused, but not entirely. It's called Page Numbers because I just like puns and wordplay and yada yada yada. But I will be talking with artists, podcasters, you name it. With the first episode, which is coming this week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It putting my money where my mouth is. It's all about me, all about me. But I felt like it was be very disingenuous for me to ask people a bunch of invasive personal questions about how much money they make without doing that myself first. So you can come here how the scope of my career has gone. And in upcoming months episodes, you will see people from across the spectrum. It's not going to be all big names or little names or medium names. It's people at every stage of their career, from just getting started out to having been done this for, more than a decade. So yeah, that's Page Numbers.
Awesome. And that will debut on Saturday, this coming Saturday. This is our weekly schedule for this week. We have a doubleheader on Monday where I have 21 Grams conversation with SG Tosh. It's going to be an awesome conversation. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern on Monday. And then at 9 p.m. Eastern, Vanessa Junta joins us with her show, Conversation Cocktail, which of course will be continuing through the spring as well. And her guest is Tamsin L. Silver. That should be awesome. And then throughout the week, you'll be getting all of the interviews that I did while I was at Slam Dance. Those will be posting everywhere that I can post them. And I had about 9 or 10 great conversations that I'm going to share with you all there. And then, of course, Page Numbers on Saturday will debut. And we'll keep going forward. And you all ready to be tortured?
I just want to quickly add, the cool thing about being it launching on the 15th is that's the Ides of March. It's my annual day where I celebrate my books, essentially.
Nice.
So the fact that the show's launching that day is extra awesome.
Awesome. All right, so let's play the epilogue. I only have 5 questions. Well, 6 if you count the bonus question. But I have 5 questions for you, and they're actually quotes this week. I'm doing quotes. You just got to tell me who said it. And yes, a lot of them are urban fantasy. I stayed with the theme a little bit. It is multiple choice, so don't worry. You will get an opportunity to guess. And you just got to tell me which one you think is right, and then we'll tally it up, and the winner gets to say the magic words at the end of the show. So, all right. So my first quote, and I think the accent will give it away, but we'll do it anyway. And Alexander wept, for there are no more worlds to conquer. Was that said by Attila the Hun? A. Attila the Hun. B. Julius Caesar. C. Hans Gruber. Or D. Hannibal Lecter. Brian Tan.
Ah, Jesus. I'm gonna say Hannibal Lecter. It just sounds like something he'd say.
Bob Magoo.
No problem.
What was B?
B is Julius Caesar.
I'll say Julius Caesar.
Man, you guys are disappointing me. Isn't Die Hard one of your favorite movies, both of you?
Are
Hans
you?
Gruber.
Wow! Damn
All right,
it!
Okay, so I know that Brian's much more a pop culture guy. So when he didn't say Hans Gruber, I was like, oh well, it can't be that.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely
so
on me. That's definitely on me.
Brian caused me to miss that.
That is
So
my fault.
wow, shame, Brian,
That is
shame.
on. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take my L on that one.
All right. For bonus point, can you tell me what he was looking at when he said that?
He was looking in the vault.
Do you want to guess,
I know
Rob?
I'm wrong. I know I'm
Oh,
wrong.
I haven't seen that movie in probably 30 years. I don't know.
He was looking at the Nakatomi Corporation's model of the plant in Indonesia when he said that.
Yeah, I knew I was
Oh.
wrong. I'm off today. I am totally off today.
All right.
I blame
Second quote.
CTE.
Bob, this is on you if you don't get this one, Bob.
Yes,
Because I know you're a fan of this series. All right. Build a man a fire, he's warm for a day. Set the man on fire, he's warm for the rest of his life. Is A, who said that? A, Mickey Spillane, B, Bill Compton, C, Harry Dresden, or D, Roy Batty?
See, Harry Dresden.
Brian?
I'm gonna say Roy Batty.
It is C, Harry Dresden.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't, so it doesn't matter.
Right, you're a fan of that series, right? Am I wrong, Bob?
No, I've never really gotten into it, to be honest. And I think the only reason why was because people that I didn't like were into it and were always going on about it. So I was like, well, screw that. If these people that suck like it, then it's not my cup of tea.
I've only read the first few, but it's on my to-do list to read them all. But
Okay.
you know.
All right, here's number 3. We were born in one day, we die in one day, we can change in one day, and we can fall in love in one day. A lot can happen in one day. Was that A, Harry Dresden, B, October Day, or C, Henry Thompson?
Think B, October Day.
Brian?
You know what? I'm gonna go with Bob on this one.
You were both correct. That was October Day. Who said?
Ha! Look at that, me piggybacking.
All right, number 4.
My wife has read all those.
Number 4, a life of eternity together should be based on more than a bargain. Was that A, Celine, B, Miriam Blaylock, C, Suki Stackhouse, or D, Vlad the Impaler?
Suki?
Yeah.
Is your answer, Brian?
That is my answer.
Suki.
Suki now.
Is that your answer as well, Bob?
Yeah.
You
That
are
sounds
both
like something
correct.
she would
That
say.
was Suki Stackhouse. They said.
Suki now.
All right.
Suki.
Suki.
All right. You guys ready for number 5? Number 5 is. I'm gonna read my own writing here. All right. Oh, okay. Number 5 is your brain isn't connected to your mouth, is it? A, Buffy Summers, B, Suki Stackhouse, C, Cordelia Chase, or D, Michael Rappaport? If you say D, fuck you.
It's Cordelia Chase.
I'll say Buffy.
You say Buffy?
I'm saying Cordelia.
I'll say Michael Rappaport. G.
It is Buffy Summers.
Damn it.
All right.
She said it to Cordelia.
For the bonus question, and I'll take whoever's closest to the number. Can you tell me, between the movies and the episodes, how many were titled Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
3.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the question?
How many episodes, between episodes and movies, how many actually were titled Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Movies and episodes. 1, the movie. Only the
Bob?
movie is only. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
3.
Wow. No, there was 145 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh Jesus! I thought you when you said titles, I was talking about. I thought you were
there's
episode
144
titles.
episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and one movie.
Although, yep, I will see. I thought you when you said titles, I thought you meant the actual episode titles themselves.
Oh, no.
Not,
Sorry.
I thought you meant like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like
it doesn't matter. Bob won anyway.
Yeah, he won.
All right, Brian. Tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
You can find me if you want to read my books. Go to Amazon, search Brian Tan, spelled exactly how it's written right there to get to my books, or you can search at author Brian Tan on Blue Sky and Fanbase. Those are the only places that you're going to find the actual me. I am not doing anything on Facebook Meta anymore, except for Messenger. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Bob, tell everybody where they can find you and then take us out with the magic words, please.
All right. Tellsbybob.com is my website. That'll take you to everything. But if you search Tells by Bob, you will stumble upon me somewhere. And I'm probably there. And as always, it's always a great time to go indie now.